Motorsports, one of mankind's most intense sports and rich and popular obsessions. However, it didn't start this way.
Here's 1894 in Paris, France. Just 9 years after the creation of the first automobile, mankind's curiosity is taking root. A French newspaper by the name of Le Petit Journal wants to host the world's first automobile race. 100 cars enter, ranging from steam, gas, and prototype electric cars. But only 21 were allowed to start, as this race had 3 general rules. The car had to be practical, safe, and reliable. Albert de Dion's steam car crosses the finish line first. However, judges disqualified his car as they didn't see it as practical, as it had to have a stoker to feed the boiler. The win went to Fuego and Pahard Levasseur's gas car. This marked the beginning of motorsports. As road races grew faster, they grew deadlier. Governments started banning automobile races on public roads after a string of catastrophic accidents, including the Paris-Madrid race, which killed at least 8 people before officials stopped it mid-event. The sport needed a home, and it needed somewhere to go. The Gordon Bennett Cup, launched in 1900 by the eccentric New York newspaper heir James Gordon Bennett Jr., was the world's first international trophy series.
With national teams competing against each other, it planted a seed, an idea, that motorsports can be more than a spectacle. It can be a contest between nations, and that seed would take decades to fully grow. The Automobile Club de France organized a new event at Le Mans, calling it the Grand Prix. Cars would race on closed road circuits rather than point to point, and this format worked. The name stuck, and over the next decade, Grand Prix racing spread across Europe, bringing engineering talent from Mercedes, Fiat, Fuego, and Alfa Romeo. This turned racing into the world's most technologically competitive sport. Motorcycle racing is even older than car racing as an organized sport. The Isle of Man Tourist Trophy began in 1907 on the winding roads on a small island between Ireland and Britain. The British government had banned motorsports on all roads on the mainland. However, not the Isle of Man, so all racers gathered there. The circuit is 37.7 miles of public road, hedges, telegraph poles, farmhouse gates, and no runoff areas. Riders averaged speeds that would seem impossible on road courses, and fatalities were accepted as a grim reality of the sport. The Tourist Trophy was not just a race, it was a proving ground. Manufacturers went there to test new frames, tires, engines. They achieved conditions that no laboratory could ever replicate. Victories at the Isle of Man were worth more than any trophy. They were worth sales. Through the 1920s and 30s, motorcycle racing had spread across Europe. Different engine classes would compete for international and national honors. The groundwork for a proper championship was quietly being laid. However, it would take the end of another world war. In 1909, a group of Indianapolis businessmen built a 2.5-mile oval track on the outskirts of the city, paved with 3.2 million bricks, and they called it a speedway. 2 years later, in 1911, they held the first Indianapolis 500. Ray Horan won in a Marmon Wasp. But Harmon did something unusual. Most drivers of the era had a mechanic right next to them to check for other competitors near them. However, Harmon had a mirror in his car to see behind him. This was the first use of a rear-view mirror in racing. A problem born on the racetrack, now a solution for all cars. The Indianapolis became America's forefront race series. A race series so significant it stood apart from any other series before it, even now. The 100,000 fans attended that first race. The traditions of drinking milk in Victory Lane, deafening roar of the field taking the green flag. It all started there, those bricks in 1911. While Europe was racing on closed road circuits and America was building cathedrals of speed, another motorsport was taking place, but in America's South. During Prohibition in the 1920s, bootleggers would need to outrun federal agents to deliver illegal whiskey across mountains at night. They modified their cars with lighter bodies and better engines. They got very, very good at driving very, very fast in the dark. When Prohibition ended, the skills didn't. Drivers would go to the dirt roads and hard-packed sands of Daytona Beach. Crowds came and the money followed. However, without rules and structure, promoters would routinely cheat drivers out of prize money. And something had to change. In December of 1947, a mechanic, driver, and promoter from Georgia named Bill France Sr. gathered the sport's key figures in the Streamline Hotel in Daytona Beach, Florida. Over 3 days, they hammered down the framework for a governing body. They called it NASCAR, the National Association of Stock Car Auto Race. The first officially sanctioned NASCAR race was held on June 19, 1949, on a dirt track in Charlotte, North Carolina. Tickets costed $1.50 and over 13,000 people showed up. American motorsports would never be the same. In 1949, the FIM launched the first ever Grand Prix Motorcycle World Championship. We now know this as MotoGP. 5 classes, 6 countries. Riders competing a full season for the first time ever. The championship era of motorcycle racing has begun. 1 year later, on May 13, 1950, the world was still recovering from the Second World War. They needed heroes. It found them at the Silverstone track. King George VI and Queen Elizabeth would attend in the grandstands. Nino Farina of Italy, in racing in an Alfa Romeo, won this race. The first ever FIA Formula One World Championship was held. The pinnacle of motorsports had its name. Formula and Formula One stood for the technical regulations all cars had to follow. A specification that was created to make a level playing field, to allow engineering and driver talent to decide the winner. The early legends were terrifying in a brilliant manner. Juan Manuel Fangio, Alberto Ascari, and Sterling Moss. They raced with no safety harnesses, fire suppression. They raced on circuits lined with trees and stone walls. Through the 1960s, motorsports was intoxicating and lethal. Formula One seasons had deaths regularly. NASCAR crashes were brutal and almost unsurvivable. Motorcycle racers died at the Isle of Man TT with grim regularity. The sport's attitude towards this was essentially, this is the price for speed, accept it or don't race. One man refused this bargain. Scottish Formula One driver Jackie Stewart survived a crash at the 1966 Belgian Grand Prix. Trapped upside down in a ditch, soaked in fuel and unable to free himself for 25 minutes. He emerged from the car and became the most vocal advocate for safety. He pushed for arm-kill barriers, proper medical facilities, fireproof clothing, full face helmets, and seatbelt. He was called a coward by some, however he was saving lives. By the time he retired in 1973, the sport had been transformed. In the 1980s, everything changed. Turbocharging, first explored in racing, allowed Formula One engines to achieve over 1,000 horsepower in qualifying trim. Carbon fiber monocoques replaced aluminum chassis, making cars both lighter and dramatically safer. Aerodynamics became as important as the engine itself. Teams built entire wind tunnel facilities. Racing had become aerospace engineering with wheels. From a muddy road outside of Paris to the skies above Abu Dhabi. From Mary Anderson's first patent to sensors that detect rain before a driver can. From bootleggers in the Carolina Hills to sold-out Daytona grandstands. From leather caps and goggles on the Isle of Man to carbon ceramic brakes and knee-down through MotoGP cleaners at 200 miles per hour. Motorsports has never just been about the speed. It's been about the relentless human need to go further, solve harder problems, and outthink the person next to you. then prove it in front of a crowd. Every inventor who watched drivers struggle. Every founder who believed the sport deserved better. Every driver who sat in the cockpit and thought, I can go faster than this. They were all right. And if history tells us anything, the greatest chapters are still ahead.